Starting during the Italian Renaissance of 1300, the Comedy of Professional Artists was one of the first true improvisational theater troupes. At one time containing over 25 distinct characters, the dell'Arte troupe were known for their soothing critiques of the overly oppressive church and governmental policies at a time when such speech was not at all common. With their intriguing stories and witty satire, they are one of the key influences that moved Europe out of the Dark Ages. The early period of the dell'Arte movement saw very undefined troupes of actors, and many of these troupes seemed to disband after a short run. Those early troupes quickly perfected their methods, and the movement was fully established in what is known as its middle period by 1400. Many of these troupes employed elements of the classic Greek theater, such as character masks and poetic rhyming, then combined it with the ornate costumes of the gypsy culture. This combination of the familiar and the classic seemed to have been done on purpose as to expose the corrupt and stringent class system of the time. Many of these actors may have in fact been born as gypsies, since no one is quite sure how the acrobatic elements were introduced. Music also played a very intricate role in the stories of the dell'Arte, often serving as mood or place, as props were very seldom used. Most of the members were able to play, to some extent, and often displayed their talents as sort of an announcement that the troupe was on its way into town. Once in town, the troupe would often set up a sort of stage, though depending on the town, a low wall or hillside would do just the same. Often making camp at the same site, the troupe would usually stay as short as several days to a couple of weeks, depending on the reception. During performances, they would act out several scripts, a dell'Arte term meaning situations. Many of these scripts were well-rehearsed, improvised variations, which could last from several minutes to over an hour. These variations made sure that no two performances were the same, allowing for repeated viewing by the limited townspeople. Though its definition is loosely translated from the Greek to mean stage business, the Commedia dell'Arte lazzi was so much more. Forms of the lazzi could encompass such things as mannerisms and rehearsed lines, to acrobatic or musical skill particular to a character. Within the dell'Arte structure, these forms of lazzi could be laughing, weeping, fear, knocking on a prop, or often fighting with another character. Mostly, the lazzi served two unique purposes. The first, as a distraction or attention-getting device for the characters, and second, an abrupt or disjointed change of pace for the audience. Most of the actors carried a small notepad which was known as their lazzatura. In it contained their specific lazzis, written often in strange code, as to prevent other troupes from using these secret traits should the book be lost. These books and their codes were often handed down from actor to actor as they passed on their character. It was not unusual to see a dell'Arte troupe last over several casts. One of the most famous troupes, the Di Angelis to a Virtute, was reported to have performed together from 1390 to well into 1623. At their height in the late 1500s, there were some 4,000 dell'Arte troupes touring throughout Europe, but by the early 1700s, they had all died out. Though there is no exact reason for this to have happened, some believe that the Renaissance drew to a close, and a less stringent government made the traditional form of the Commedia dell'Arte obsolete. There are other sources, however, that claim that the form never truly died out, as the movement is said to have influenced much of the thought, literature, and even architecture prevalent from the early modern era of Europe. Many great works, including Shakespeare's The Tempest, works of the playwright Molière, and even some modern television shows contain more than one small similarity to those early days of the theater. It is thought that perhaps the dell'Arte movement may live on in the modern art form of mime, as their form of art employs large amounts of disciplined lazzi and improvisational skill. It is possible that the form may have simply evolved once again, making it truly a spectacular art form.